Welcome to the w.a.v.e Wellness Podcast. I'm your witchy, autistic, vegan, NB host, Lauren McNabb, the Green Mage. Together, we'll explore wellness beyond the mainstream, guided by the lens of intersectional feminism. Get ready for a magical journey. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, Lauren McNabb here, the Green Mage, here with the w.a.v.e Wellness Podcast. This is our second episode, so thank you for joining me. Today we're going to talk about the W in w.a.v.e Wellness, which is witchy. I just think that's the best word to describe me, to describe my practice of witchcraft. Sounds almost kind of silly for me to say out loud. Like I said in the intro podcast, I haven't known I was a witch that long, or maybe I've really known all along. And as far as the four identities in w.a.v.e, right? So witchy, autistic, vegan, NB. The witchy part of my life isn't a huge part of my life, but it does really affect my self-care, right? Like I do a lot of self-care type things that I've learned from witchcraft. So that's definitely something that we'll be talking about. But first, before we really dive in, I want to go through some definitions. So the word witch, it does have multiple definitions. I mean, everyone might have their own definition. But the definition is a person who's believed to have magical powers, especially to harm others. I don't like that. Witches are often depicted as women, but they can be any gender. Agree with that. A practitioner of a neo-pagan religion or tradition, such as Wicca, which I do want to talk about that. An informal, disapproving term for an unpleasant or ugly woman, heard, and a charming or alluring girl or woman. So I thought those were really interesting definitions. I feel like a man came up with those. But just briefly, I think that used to also be part of my, I guess, not necessarily definition, but idea, is that a witch was someone that practiced Wicca. And that's why I stayed away from it for so long. I saw other women calling themselves witches, and I kind of looked into it, and I found Wicca, and I was like, I think that's cool. Not really my vibe. I've been an atheist for so long that trying to jump into like a new religion just didn't sit right with me. And so I was like, no, I'm not going to be a witch if I have to practice Wicca. Because that was just my ignorant idea of what a witch was, which is not. But that's what I thought. So moving on, there's many different kinds of witches. Most of the witches I know would be considered what you call eclectic witches, which are kind of a mix of everything. So I'm just going to go through kind of the definitions of what I identify as personally. So first and foremost, I'm a solitary witch. I have friends that are witches, don't have a coven. We talk about certain things. We might send each other memes on the full moon and things like that. I have witchy content creators that I follow, but definitely no coven. I'm actually surprised when I hear people are in covens. It seems like something you only see in TV or movies, but it is very much a real thing and a real way that people practice. And that's really cool. I've never been one to have a lot of friends. Maybe that's what that stems from. I'm just a solitary person, period. So to think about practicing something so intimately with a group of other people, it's just not for me, I don't think. So yes, a solitary witch is a witch, a practitioner of witchcraft who chooses to work alone rather than in a coven or a group. They may practice their faith in their home or another designated space. They may choose to work alone by preference or because they haven't found a group they want to join. That's valid. I just prefer to work alone, honestly. A green witch. So that is why I call myself the Green Mage. That's why my health and wellness business is called Green Mage Wellness, because Green Witch Wellness was obviously taken. I also didn't want to just come out and slap the word witch on my business. I think that would have lost me. some clients for sure. I live in a very conservative part of the country. That would probably scare people. Now, if I were just starting a business and it was more focused maybe on the energy work side of things, I would have been okay with that. But I have an established business. I've been working for myself as a licensed massage therapist for almost 10 years. Well, I've been working for myself almost 9 years. Yeah, because my son is 8. And I do the kind of the holistic stuff. I do the Reiki, I do the sound healing, but I also did just start my health and wellness business. So I still practice like legally under my name because I have to. Texas laws are kind of weird for massage therapy, but I still say my business name is Green Mage Wellness because I am a Green Witch. A Green Witch is a practitioner of witchcraft who focuses on the natural world and its energies. Like that lines up with what I do perfectly. Green witches use plants, herbs, flowers, and oils for healing, and they work with the elements, seasons, and animals to create spells. They may also use crystals or stones to commune with the land. So yeah, I do a little bit of all of that. I'm vegan, so I am a firm believer in plant-based health and healing alone, just diet-wise, not even talking magical-wise. I do make my own oils and tinctures and things like that with herbs and berries. I grow flowers. My son and I grow flowers. And, again, obviously, essential oils are kind of a big part of doing massage therapy. Not for everyone, but for a lot of us. And as far as working with the elements, I do things like collect rainwater, collect storm water. We have hurricanes here. I've collected hurricane water, so that came in handy. The different seasons. I don't know that I necessarily change my craft based on the season. I do like to kind of celebrate the different holidays, but again, the craft isn't a huge part of my life. I'll just say that. I do lots of little witchy things throughout the day. It definitely has improved certain areas of my life. I use it when needed, but I'm not like an everyday doing elaborate rituals kind of person. In animals, I collect the animal bones that I find. I don't have a familiar. I wouldn't do that to my pets. But maybe there is this. It's not a crow. I'll have to look up what he is. I had a friend tell me, what do I call it, a grackle or something like that. I do have a very large bird that shows up in my yard every day. I need to start leaving him little treats. I think he would like that. But I do also practice Ayurveda to a degree. And Ayurveda is really big on changing your practices for the different seasons. So if anything, my diet changes throughout the seasons, which again, your diet can be used to heal. So that's a little bit magical. And crystals for sure. I always have a crystal on. I generally wear my rose quartz. I know rose quartz is for like self-love and things like that. It's just one of the first crystals I have that I could wear on a necklace every day. And really, crystals will do whatever you charge them to do. And so I charge this to just repel negative energy. This is when I was working as a dental hygienist. And people just come in so grumpy and they're just always giving you shit. And I was just kind of sick of it. And also being autistic, people just always give you shit for some reason. Like people are just so mean to you all the time. And you get really confused why they act like that. But I found that when I wear this, that doesn't happen so much. Maybe because people see a crystal on me and don't want to talk to me. I'd rather people not talk to me than to be mean, honestly. And then green witches also believe that every part of nature has its own unique energy, and they strive to tap into these energies to promote balance and well-being. They also believe that the natural world is alive and full of magical energies. I definitely believe everything has energy. I'm a Reiki practitioner. I know that everything has energy. Everything that's, not even everything that's alive, really. I mean, crystals have energy. You wouldn't consider those alive. So yeah, everything always has energy that we're interacting with. I mean, I have so many electronics in front of me right now recording this podcast. That all has energy too. The plants in my room have energy, you know? So I definitely believe that. I need to make it a point to make friends with the trees at my house. Because you should make friends with the trees at your house. They protect your home. I haven't yet. I talk nice to them. I leave their leaves alone when they fall. I don't rake their leaves. But I do have a tree that's dying in the backyard, and I'm not sure what that says about the energy of our house, to be honest. It was like that when we moved here. Something happened to it. Green witches are often committed to sustainable and eco-friendly living, and they advocate for environmental preservation. That is absolutely me. So I am a vegan for my health, first and foremost, vegan for the environment, definitely, and vegan for the animals, of course. My husband and I are both together, we are environmental vegans. His business is an indoor vertical farming business, which sounds like it just uses a lot of electricity and it's not very sustainable. But we compost everything, all the waste. He reuses everything that he can. He uses solar panels. We bought an electric car. I'll have to have my husband on and ask him maybe a little bit deeper what his reasons for all these things are. For me, it is a love of the earth that this comes from, and it is me wanting to be as sustainable as possible and leave as small of carbon footprint I can. For him, he's just kind of a techie geek, and maybe he's just wanting to save money and is into that. I don't know. He says he cares about the environment, but I don't know. And let's ask him that. We're going to grill him on that when he comes in. And green witches do have a sacred relationship with the earth, which they consider an important source of connection, safety, and intimacy. Absolutely. I have the utmost respect for Mother Earth. I always have, even before I was vegan. And again, some of that does come from autism and just kind of feeling more of a connection with animals than anything. And also growing up in the 90s, we learned about the rainforest, but we also heard about the destruction of the rainforest. We heard about, save the whales and things like that. So I think a lot of that stuff was ingrained in some of us from a young age. Not everyone listened. But me for sure really made an impact on me. And green witches also make their own ingredients for rituals, and they may rely on a pot and cooking utensils for spell work. And they have a book of shadows. I have a book of shadows. I mostly just save things on the internet now. I don't write down a whole lot. I'm not very scientific with it or organized. That would be nice. But yeah, that kind of leads into kitchen witchery as well, which I would say I definitely relate to. A kitchen witch is a practitioner of kitchen magic, a type of witchcraft that involves weaving magic into everyday tasks like cooking, baking, and brewing. Beer or kombucha? Kitchen witches believe that the kitchen is a sacred space. I love to cook. Again, it kind of comes down more to my diet. Is very green. Is very plant-based. I will write on my bay leaves before I put them in something. I definitely cook more for the health benefits, but I do try to incorporate a little bit of magic when I can, for sure. But for me, kitchen witch and green witch kind of go hand in hand. It's very much using plants to heal, honestly. And a crystal witch is a type of witch who uses crystals and gemstones, and they're practiced for healing, energy work, and magic. So again, I told you about this one. I also started wearing an amethyst more recently. I'll tell you why in a minute. I think that's how I really got into witchcraft, even before I knew it was witchcraft. I had friends that were into crystals, and I kind of started to look into them a little bit more. I remember getting an amethyst, a big chunk of amethyst. I should have brought it with me. I have it in the bathroom. I had a big chunk of amethyst that my dad had like in his curio cabinet for years, and I took it because he was like, whatever, you can have it. And I remember looking up what the properties of amethyst are and that they're good for sobriety. And my ex-husband many moons ago was trying to quit smoking, maybe drinking. And so I just remember having that crystal and saying, okay, this should help. So that's when I kind of started to look into things. I had a friend buy me a tiger's eye bracelet, and I looked up what it was for, and it was for focus. And she was like, oh, perfect. We all need that. So yeah, I always liked them aesthetically. And then I would always just kind of look up the meaning and say, okay, yeah, that sounds good. And I do use them with my Reiki. I have a little Reiki crystal stone set as well. And then I have, I have one right here. I'm in my massage room. So I just have this little crystal point. I just leave that out. I have a selenite tower. I use a selenite wand to clear the aura before and after. I have pendulum I use, and I have some black tourmaline in here. So yeah, I use them with my massage practice a bit. And then just personally, I just always have a pendant on as well. Now, this is one when I first looked up all the different types of witches. This was the one that really resonated with me. I'm not sure if it's the witch that I am, but it was definitely the witch that I want to be, and that's a hedge witch. A hedge witch is a practitioner of a form of folk magic that focuses on the liminal spaces between the physical and spiritual worlds. The term hedge refers to the idea that these witches walk the metaphorical hedge, which serves as a boundary or barrier between the ordinary world and the realm of the supernatural. Now, I related to that because I've always felt that I did have psychic powers. I constantly get deja vu, more so around the full moon, almost every full moon, actually. And even that was honestly one of my earliest memories as a kid, was telling my mom, this has happened before, and her kind of explaining to me what deja vu was, which makes me think she also gets it quite a bit. I think all my dreaming abilities and my deja vu and my intuition and psychic abilities, if you want to call it that, my sister shares that as well. I would love to have her on the podcast because we've never sat and talked about this. I'm not super close with my sister, but I think now as adults, we need to talk about these kind of things because our mom definitely didn't talk about them. And like I said, I think she kind of has the same experiences, we'll say. My mom didn't let me buy a Ouija board when I was a kid because she said she had used one and had a bad experience. So, well, I don't know what that means. But yeah, so there's that. I do a lot of, I don't know if you could call it dream work. I almost always know when I'm dreaming. I can then wake myself up from a dream, which is really hard. I don't do it anymore. I did it all the time as a kid. Maybe because it freaked me out because I knew I was dreaming, or if it was just to test myself, or if it's a bad dream especially. I definitely want to wake myself up. But I almost always lucid dream, like constantly thinking, even in my dreams. Again, maybe that's an autism thing too. I literally cannot stop thinking, even when I'm dreaming. And it's not all the time. It's not 100% of the time, but I would say like 75% of the time. I'm just like, this ain't it. And then I'll move on in the dream or wake myself up if I really want to. So that's partially why I resonated with the term hedge witch. There's also what I do now as an adult. I have trained as a death doula. Someone that walks the hedge right there. You are sitting with the dying and walking that path with them and walking them all the way to the door and leaving them. So that's part of it. I don't reach out to the other side. I've never done that. I have had readings where the practitioner did that. And I'm not saying I don't believe in it. I'm just saying I don't do that. I don't know how to do that. My whole family has been so conservative. I don't know that they would, I don't know. What are conservative family members like in the afterlife? If I have these abilities and my mom does, and I have a feeling my aunt does. So my mom's aunt, my great aunt, who's her mom's sister. My grandma died before I was born. But I feel like my grandma, I feel like it just was passed down from the women. And if there's anyone I want to reach out to, it would be my great grandmother. I see her in my dreams a lot. I see her and my great grandfather a lot. We were very close growing up. I miss them dearly. And yeah, they're the ones I see in my dreams. They're the ones that I smell in my dreams and in waking. I really feel like they're always here with me. And the last time I did have a reading, the practitioner told me she saw someone with a J name, with kind of fluffy white hair, putting a necklace on me. And I do have my grandmother's necklace. And her name was Jo. So maybe that was her. I like to think it was. But I also had two family friends pass away kind of right before that, and they also had J names. But the hair and the necklace, it had to have been grandma. So yeah, I'm trained as a death doula. I don't practice it. I wish I would have. I trained for that during the pandemic because I was out of work as a massage therapist. And then kind of as soon as I finished school and was about to start working with a hospice, they let us go back to work. So unfortunately, while the training was extremely valuable, and I'm happy to talk about that, and I will talk about that in a future podcast, it's not something I actively do. So again, I'm all over the place, right? All those things kind of fit in my niche. Sorry, someone pulled up. It distracted me. So I would be an eclectic witch, like almost everyone I know. An eclectic witch is a practitioner of witchcraft who draws from a variety of traditions, beliefs, and cultures to create their own personal practice. I don't know that I draw from different cultures. I would be very careful to say that. I am very respectful of closed practices now that I know to do that. Eclectic witches often choose practices that feel natural and good to them in the moment, and their practices may change and evolve over time. Again, I thought I was a hedge witch. Maybe I'd like to be. I want to get a little bit more into that for sure. But right now I'm more of a green kitchen witch, and that's great too. Eclectic witches may incorporate elements from a variety of sources, including shamanism, Reiki, yoga, Eastern philosophy, Buddhism, ceremonial magic, psychism, mediumship, and divination. Some say that it's important to practice witchcraft in a way that feels authentic and resonant, and only do what makes sense and motivates you. So I am starting my yoga teacher training this year. I was Buddhist for a number of years. I mean, I guess if someone asked me my religion, I would still say Buddhist, but it's not something I really practice or am active with anymore. I grew up evangelical Christian, and then my ex-husband was in NA and in therapy, and the therapist told him, find a religion. And he was completely atheist. But again, that's part of the 12 steps is finding a religion. He had friends that were Buddhist, so he went with Buddhism. I started reading into it and I was like, whoa, this makes way more sense than Christianity to me. And I had to let Christianity go. And it was really scary because I've been indoctrinated from the time I was a very young child and really did feel that presence of Jesus there. And it was really hard to push that away and not be terrified that I was doing the wrong thing and was going to end up in hell. Now looking back, it seems a little silly. And I'm also not sure if Jesus exists. So if anyone wants to give me their 2 cents about that, I'd love to talk about that. Because people say, well, he was at least a real person. I think, I don't know. I haven't read the historical records. If I say anything, it's going off a YouTube video, right? So I believe there were lots of prophets. There's lots of prophets today. I mean, look at our influencers, right? There were influencers back then. So if Jesus existed, was he a prophet? Yeah. Was he a leftist? Yeah. Like, we would have been homies, you know? I follow the teachings of Jesus, I think, even more so than some of my Christian family members. So there you go. But again, I mean, if someone asked me, I would just say I'm an atheist. But if I didn't want to scare that person, I might say I'm Buddhist. But yeah, definitely love the whole Eastern philosophies. Again, I do Reiki, working on my psychic powers. I do divination. I have a crystal ball. I have tarot cards, all that kind of thing. And so again, so talking about religion, I would have always identified as a secular witch as well. Not into Wicca. Didn't like that. Just did not make any sense to me. No hate to Wicca. It just was not clicking with me at all. And I hadn't ever worked with any deities because in my head I'm like, well, those aren't real, so I'm not going to do that. Secular witches may work with archetypes to promote healing and self-care instead of doing deity work. So that's where I was at, right? To me, witchcraft was all about self-care, shadow work, looking inward, using tools, not using magic to fix things, but kind of using magic as a tool or making tools for certain purposes, right? Bringing more money in, bringing more abundance in, sobriety, things like that. But that was until very recently. I started working with Hecate. I don't know what changed or what got me in the TikTok algorithm to finally start believing. But I said to heck with it. Let's give it a try. Because I really felt all the signs were there that she had been calling out to me, not only recently, but had been calling out to me maybe my whole life. And I say my whole life because another really early memory I had was seeing the number 333 everywhere, which apparently is one of the signs that she's reaching out to you. I remember seeing the Om symbol. So maybe Buddhism's been reaching out too, but seeing the Om symbol and thinking, and seeing that everywhere, even in my conservative town, even as a child, and thinking it looks like a 3. And, I see that symbol everywhere. I see 3s everywhere. And like, I remember making the connection of, oh, well, when my sister was born, I was 3. My mom said, well, actually, you were 3 months to being 3 when your sister was born. She's December and I'm March. So I was like, oh my gosh. I just remember mentioning that. And I see angel numbers on the clock still pretty frequently. And so anyways, I was on TikTok like I always was. And I had seen Hecate content before. Like, I've been on TikTok a couple years now. And now it's about to go away. And by the time this is posted, it might be TikTok's last day. And yeah, that's just, I had just gotten used to posting on TikTok and they're taking it away. But anyways, if it wasn't for TikTok, I wouldn't have known about Hecate at all. And Hecate's night was November 16th. And so it was on November 16th. I went out of town. We were up in the hill country in Texas. And I brought some stuff with me to do some rituals and to make an offering. It was perfect because you want to leave your offering at a crossroads. And there were lots of crossroads on the property. I ended up going to where the main kind of road on the property meets with the main road going by all the properties, like the actual street. And I went there and left an offering and said my little thing. Had my candle, had my dog with me. He was chilling. But there had been other signs, right? It wasn't just TikTok. It wasn't like, oh, this seems cool and fun and I want to do this. I was listening more to the signs that she was reaching out to, right? Dogs barking. That's been in the past, I would say maybe 6 months. We've lived in this house a little over 3 years, I think. And no, maybe 4 years now. And I would say in the past 6 months, there have been more dogs barking. I haven't seen anyone move in, but someone must have. But I always just thought that was weird. I thought, okay, I hear dogs barking all the time now. And you're like, well, that's normal. You live in a neighborhood. Maybe. I started finding bones in my backyard. And so that was another sign. And the moth is another one of her symbols. And I had just gotten a death head moth tattoo on Halloween. So 2 weeks before that. I got that because being a death doula, being queer, a lot of queer women have moth tattoos. So I was like, perfect bat signal for the other queer women, right? And then being a death head moth. But one of Hecate's signs is moths too. And Hecate is kind of a death doula in a way herself. And she's not a witch. She's a lot more than that. But you could say she's a goddess of witches. But if she were a witch, she would be a hedge witch, right? She has her dogs and she can kind of go between life and death and, and life in the afterlife. And, I found her very relatable. She just clicked with me. And, we're still building our relationship. A lot of witches do have a really strong relationship with her, and, she's mother to them and things like that. And, we're still building our relationship right now. I have an altar set up for her, and I do make offerings, every so often. I try to do it like on the new moon and then the end of the month, like whatever the last day of the month is, because again, it's that liminal space. And you want to also, work with her like during the new moon, the dark moon. And yeah, a lot has changed in the past. It's only been 2 months. Today's the 15th, so January 15th. So it's been 2 months I've been working with her, and a lot has changed and moved forward in my life. I spent all of Christmas updating my massage room. The room I'm in now, it used to be the primary bedroom, so it's really big. And I've actually been thinking about switching the rooms because I was in a small spare bedroom and I had just enough room for everything, but it was getting very tight and I wasn't able to get my singing bowls out. It was just feeling really cramped. And I had thought about this honestly for months, if not years. I was like, man, it would be really nice to have the primary bedroom as the massage room, the bathroom's right there, and I would have all this space, and I could use the closet as an office. I had just been kind of like thinking about this, like I said, probably for years, but had never brought it up with my husband for whatever reason. One day I was just like, it would be cool. And he went for it. So that was a big change. Starting my YouTube channel, I needed that push. Again, this is something I've been talking about for years. I actually wanted to start a YouTube channel when I was a dental hygienist, and I probably should have because my patients didn't know how to use a water pick. And instead of demoing it every single client, I wanted to just go home and make a YouTube video. And I should have. I mean, that would have been 10 years ago. Can you imagine having a channel 10 years ago? A lot of you do. But again, it was just like, I have all these ideas, but it was never put into motion. And I just really feel like I've been not stuck in a rut, but just kind of stuck in autopilot. I mean, we're so busy. I run my massage business. I help my husband run his farm business. We homeschool our son. He has activities he does. We have 3 dogs now. And it's a lot. And to take on something else, to take on anything else, definitely needed a push. And, things start to kind of go by the wayside, like, oh yeah, I'll get to that eventually. And you think of these projects that need to get done around the house. And I just, since working with her, feel this push of just do it, just do it, just do it, and keep going, just keep going. And it is the push that I needed. And I thank her for that. And you might be a secular person thinking, okay, I think that's all in your head. So what if it's all in my head? It's working, isn't it? That's what matters, I think, is being respectful of other people's beliefs. And, a healthy dose of skepticism is great too. But again, I mean, if you're seeing results, then what's the harm in that? So, like I said, my craft isn't a huge part of my life. I do have the altar in my room. I blow cinnamon through the door on the first of the month. I charge my crystals under the full moon. Again, I use quite a bit of this stuff in the massage practice. But when it comes to self-care, I would say that's where it comes in a little bit more. A big one is just saying positive affirmations. So that's my tip for you today, is to start saying positive affirmations. And I think a lot of people are still stuck in this kind of like prayer mode, I would call it, of asking for things when you need to just claim it. Law of attraction, right? I know you've heard of this. So instead of, I really hope that this restaurant starts buying our microgreens, it's going to be, I am so grateful that this restaurant buys our microgreens every week. You just say it like you already have it. It's actually really easy. And I've been doing that for years. I've had some pretty good results with it. So also for self-care is things like skincare, using my oils, using the things that I've personally made. Last time I was up in the hill country, I gathered a ton of juniper berries. It was really interesting how that happened. I had actually had cellulitis like the week before we went up there. And that was really scary. And my ankle was still really swollen, even though I had gone through my course of antibiotics and I was doing lymphatic drainage, which I know how to do. And, my ankle is still just kind of not feeling really great. And then I started to see all the berries on the junipers. And I looked up, what are juniper berries good for? They're good for lymphatic health and lymphatic drainage. So I grabbed a ton of them, and I am making a tincture with them and making oil with them. And yeah, I just thought that was really cool how the earth just kind of provided exactly what I needed in that moment. And I also make my own facial oil, or I will get it from someone else locally. I try to keep everything as natural as possible. I always have my crystals on. I think that's self-care too, just believing that you are protected. I have a protection spell at the front door. It keeps the clients away that I don't want. I have moldavite in this room somewhere too. I think that's done a really good job of getting rid of the clients that I don't vibe with. And yeah, just feeling really safe in my home. I also have money spells and money oil around, and a little money pot kind of in the hallway. You don't walk by it to get to the massage room anymore, but it's still close by. So just little things like that. Like I said, writing on the bay leaves. I use a knife. I don't write it with a Sharpie or anything because it's going in the soup. Get a knife and, write on there. I also write on my water. So we use the big 5-gallon waters, and I'll draw the Reiki symbols on there and just write other positive things: wealth, health, abundance, safety, love, things like that. I do keep crystals around the house, not just in the massage room, but we have them in the bedroom. Selenite towers are great for, clearing out negative energy. So, I have plants and I have an air filter and I have a selenite tower in almost every room in the house. What else? I use essential oils and make some of my own bath products. Again, this all kind of goes into just being not just vegan, but just living like a really quote unquote clean lifestyle. But you can still make that magical too, because magic is really all about the intention that you put behind things. And whether it's cooking a really delicious, healthy meal or making your own bath products, if you create those things with the intention of nourishing yourself and taking care of yourself and loving yourself, it's going to work. It's going to work its magic. And you're going to learn to love yourself and you're going to feel nourished. Because, like I said, magic it's all about the intention behind things. So again, my witchy tip, my healthcare really health and wellness tip for you today is to try some positive affirmations. And maybe you already do that, but maybe you need to refresh that, or find something new, or just tweak the way that you're saying things to yourself. If I had to give myself an affirmation right now, I would say I am so grateful for the balance in my life, because that work-life balance is tough, guys. I don't know if any other self-employed millennials feel this way, but don't you feel like we should have a little bit more money for as hard as we work? That is another conversation for another day. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep using my money oils and my money spells and my affirmations to attract abundance and wealth, and most importantly, balance. And with that, I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much for watching. Be well.